And we're off.
To the races.
To the races, indeed. When was the last time you put a punt on? Had a race on the races. Had a punt on the races.
I'm not big on it anymore. Look,
Yeah.
but I did have my time. I used to be I used to work out west.
Yeah.
So there was a time in my life when I was about 19 where I'm working away for 10 days out of every fortnight.
Yeah.
There's all these old blokes that I'm working with, and I'm sort of like,
Were they giving you the inside track, were they?
really, I mean, I was at work and then you go home. The nature of working on a job like that is you go back to the camp, you have dinner with the same people you've been working with all day,
Yep.
and then there's nothing to do. So most people end up at the little bar, like the pub in the mess hall.
Yeah.
And they've got TAB in there. So over the course of 6 months.
That just feels like really feeding addiction, doesn't it?
It's just there's some guys I knew that actually didn't have like residence, like they didn't own. They might have had like rental houses and stuff they were renting out, but there was a guy I knew who he just lived on camps, and he owned like a Mercedes, and he owned a few houses that he rented out and had some investments and stuff, but literally did not have a home to go to. So that's a bit depressing for the start of the podcast, but. There was a few guys there that taught me how to just put the $1 or $2 bets on the greyhounds.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was really
on the dish lickers.
Yeah, on the dish lickers. Yeah. But over time, I started to realise that one, at the end of that job, I was like, I don't really want to work away again if I can avoid it, because I can see it being a slippery slope.
Yeah.
You see how people get into like gambling addictions and drinking addictions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the other thing was that I was like, getting pretty good at it. Getting pretty good at picking them, and I was like, this isn't a good sign. And also, like, I'm just not big on the whole organized, animal racing.
Cruelty. Yeah,
it just doesn't seem. At the time, it was a good way to pass the time, but since then, I'm kind of like, I don't feel the same way.
Given it the consideration it requires. And opted out. Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh man, I had a few good little flutters. I didn't make a whole bunch of money because I'd never bet more than $2 as a rule.
Yeah.
What about you? Are you?
A little bit. You
grew up in Rocky, so
did,
I'd imagine.
Yeah. So there was a race course there where they would actually run.
Of course.
And like my father's father was like, that was his Saturday. So he was at the table, papers out, form guide. Wireless on behind him, had all his bets on the TAB. And this is all like call in your bets or internet or anything like that. He would have put them all on that morning.
Yeah.
Watched as they all rolled out. Went to collect his winnings.
My grandmother, she used to come to visit us from Caloundra. She'd come up to Gladstone.
Yeah.
And same thing back in the day, like it was, the 90s. But
also, even when she was on holiday and visiting, Saturdays were for Grandma. Grandma would bet.
Yes and no. Like, not entirely. She'd try to play it down that she was doing it, but she would be like, I just got to pop out to the car for a minute. She'd jump out in the car.
Turn the radio
on, listen to the radio. Then she'd come back in and she'd borrow the landline to call up her bookie and put a few bets on. But the thing was that she'd always seem to make a little bit like, how some people, they're like, I'm going to get another win, blah, blah, blah. But then there's some people that genuinely it seems like they're getting about 50-50. And when she won, she would win big. Decent. So it was it's still a fallacy, and it's
totally.
But you couldn't deny that she was making she was putting coin away at the same time.
Yeah.
Also, if that's what you like to do, like she's in her late 80s now, and she'll put on $500 worth of lotto a month, right?
Holy snap and duck shit.
But once every few months, she'd be like, oh yeah, I won like $1,500 in the lotto the other day or whatever like that. And that's what she likes to do, man.
Yeah.
So all the power to her,
I had a mate who had like, a TAB account, and it was like a house account, like he and his two mates that he lived with, but it was linked to his card though.
Oh no. Critical error.
Rookie error. And yeah, they would just punt with his money. He ended up in and he took it too. Like the other boys didn't pay it off. He was still paying it off 10 years later, as far as I know.
That's so like reckless.
I won't name and shame, but it's not great.
Fucking hell.
Oh, great.
Well, I mean, Hannibal Buress, comedian.
Oh, what a legend.
Have you? Yeah.
I love Hannibal Buress.
Dude, Hannibal Buress is one of my favorite, like, just oddball comedians. He's just got this. There's this thing no one else can do that he does, and
his character in Girls is absolutely my favorite.
right.
Yeah.
I know that he's done a bit of TV stuff. I haven't really seen. I've seen a little bit of Broad City.
Not Girls. Sorry.
Yeah.
Broad City.
But I've only seen a little bit of that as well. And
Broad City.
It's funny because he can only be him, so he gets cast as him, like a lot of comedians. You know,
the funniest thing about his character in Broad City is that he's the most responsible one.
Yeah.
Which says a lot.
Yeah, he's the most responsible one, but also like...
And he's the only one who shows any character development as well. He's the only one who grows.
Even though his whole persona is that of someone who's pretty kind of loose.
That's right.
And he's still playing... He's playing a responsible dude, but with the same mannerisms and demeanor. It's really weird, hey?
Yeah. Not Girls, Broad City.
But speaking to the lack of responsibility, he was, because, you know, he's a comedian and makes a fair bit of money. There was a little while there where he was putting like pretty big bets on basketball games.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and he was doing over-unders.
Who's his team?
I'm not actually sure.
Okay.
I'm sure it's like the Lakers or something.
Yeah, it makes
I'm
sense.
pretty sure because he's from LA.
Yep.
But yeah, so he got up to, he made like $100,000 out of over-unders, right? Because he was putting big bets on, and he made this $100,000. And so his bookie was like, hey, look, I'm out of town at the moment. You know, next time I catch up, I'll you know, sort you out with the money. And he did sort him out with it in cash.
Holy shit.
So he gave it to him in cash because he had all this cash because people were putting cash bets in with him.
God.
So Hannibal Buress has got this $100,000 worth of cash. And he was like, well, you know, I didn't really want to deposit it because it's like, you know, it's nice to have this.
Sus.
Well, no, not even that. It's like, I've got this big, like, I walked out of there with this bag of cash and I'm like, fuck yeah, like this feels good, you know? You know, it's still his money, but it's just this like, fuck yeah, I got this cash. And so he didn't deposit it and he was kind of just putting it back through his bookie and he blew the whole $100,000 he was up.
No.
Putting it back through the bookie, yeah. And so that was when he was like, okay, I don't gamble anymore. He'd already stopped drinking and smoking. And now he's like, now I don't gamble. And he's just slowly cutting all these things. He's like, I can't.
Yeah, that's a problem because it feels like free money. And so he's frittering away free money.
Yeah.
Feels like free money.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not good.
So don't gamble, kids.
No. There's an excellent episode of Seinfeld where there's a guy becomes a bookie and he asks if the guy asks Kramer and Jerry if they want to put any bets on the basketball, and Kramer's like, no, I've got an illness, like, I can't, and so he puts bets on for Jerry, and he's like, well, you don't have a problem,
and
so it ends up like Kramer goes to the game and gets into a fight with Reggie Miller. And causes Jerry to win. Like the outcome of the fight, whatever, Reggie Miller gets removed from the game.
Yeah.
And so Kramer makes it so that Jerry actually wins his bet.
I was actually watching an episode of, Rick and Morty. You haven't watched any Rick and Morty?
Not a lot.
There's a
little
new season they've got called a show they've got called Solar Opposites, and it's about a couple of aliens that have crashed. It's kind of like Third Rock from the Sun. This is what I like about Justin Roiland. It's Third Rock from the Sun, but it's Rick and Morty style, so it's just loose as fuck.
I will say I did watch that like special that came out the other week that was like the Voltron piss take.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Weird. It's it's all in Japanese.
Oh.
It's all in Japanese.
Okay, good. I'll stack that one up.
It's very, very, very weird.
Well, the thing that I think you'd like about this other show, the Solar Opposite show, is that the kids of the alien family just casually, if there's someone they don't like, they hit them with a shrink ray. They put them in a shoebox, they take them home, and they put them in their wall. It's like a terrarium, but it's full of people that they've shrunken and put in this wall, and then there's this side story going on about the people inside. So as the normal main story is going on, they're just like, fuck that guy, and they shrink him and they put him in the shoebox, they take him home and they put him in the terrarium. And then the main story goes on most episodes, but occasionally there'll be a cut scene to what's happening in the wall.
Are they starting a society in there, or are they still trying to escape the terrarium?
They're starting, it's like a full-blown, like an dystopian future kind of, like an ant farm, but I actually forget
That's
what my
very
point was
interesting.
of why I brought that up now, but
gambling, Kramer, Jerry.
Oh yeah, there's a scene where they the resistance is all in the very bottom like forgotten layers of the terrarium that the upper people have forgotten about, and the resistance is having a meeting in what they found was probably the first part of the terrarium that was built, and it's a replica of the set of Seinfeld. And so they're having this discussion about what they're going to do for, to overthrow or whatever. And then this guy runs in with some information, but he bursts through the door and he's
Kramer?
a guy that looks just like Kramer. Yeah. Yeah. So I think just for that.
I do want to check that out.
Now you'll want to check it out.
And now I'm going to throw a complete U-turn in there.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to be my chat. I'm sorry to do this out of order.
Yeah.
But it's just
we're kind of already chatting,
segue.
so we'll have to.
It's kind of the perfect segue here.
Yeah.
Is that you said about resistance, right?
Yep.
And like, I don't know if you've been like watching the news and whatever today, but like, have you been watching what's happening in Afghanistan?
No. Oh, I've seen memes, ironically enough, about the Taliban.
Well, yeah. Well, the Taliban have reclaimed Afghanistan completely.
Right.
Yeah. So they took Kabul. So the American government, Joe Biden, said a couple of months ago, we're gonna withdraw all troops before September 11. And then he brought it forward and he was like, August 31, we're going to be out. And there was pundits out there that were like predicting that, because for the last 20 years, the American and NATO forces have been training the, like, what they called LEEs, locally engaged employees or something.
Yeah.
Basically, they were like training these people to be like a security force, like local Afghani fighters into like a local security force, right? And they were sort of saying like as well stocked and as well prepared and everything as that. They were like, we predict that potentially like the Taliban will take Kabul within 90 days of the US Army withdrawing, and it took them less than a week. But it took them less than a week because the president of Afghanistan fled the country because they basically, like the Taliban basically just went, look, we've no problem with taking this by force, and there will be bloodshed.
Yeah,
and the president just went, I'll take the L.
Yeah,
and like save some lives, right? So it doesn't have
the big L.
Yeah. And so today like the like essentially Taliban have retaken the country, and there's like a big scramble to get everyone out. And this is unfortunately going to be a lot of people that were like engaged by American, Australian, NATO forces locally as translators, as guides, as whatever, who are going to be left behind there. And obviously, like, if they're sort of known sympathizers, and it's such a weird situation in that, like, so many of those Taliban fighters and forces were trained by the US in the initial part.
Yeah.
Like, which, and it was just because the US came in because it was the Russian forces.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, the Russians are our enemies, so we'll make, enemy of our enemy is our friend.
Yeah.
And then ironically, they were like, became their you know, it's such a weird like set of circumstances. I mean, have you seen Rambo 3?
No.
So Rambo 3 is Rambo going into Afghanistan, arming and helping the Taliban fight the Russians.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Height of the Cold War.
That's one of the few franchises actually that I haven't gone through and done yet.
So the first movie, First Blood.
I was going to say the like Rambo books because
there is a book.
There is?
Yeah. It's called First Blood.
But was the movie based on the book?
Yeah. Okay. Now we're into the movies. Let's go.
All right.
So this actually came up the other day because Quentin Tarantino was asked, because you know how he's out promoting his book version of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood right now?
Yeah.
So, and you know how he said he'd only ever do 13 movies?
10.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever the number is, 10.
Yep.
Nice. They said if you had to do your last film and it was based on a book, what movie would you do? And he said, I'd do First Blood and Adam Driver would be my Rambo.
Right.
But not a remake of the film. He would make the film of the book.
Yeah, which is a different thing.
Which is wildly different.
Okay.
So have you never seen First Blood? You've never seen any of them?
The only one I ever saw was the one that came out in like the mid-2000s.
Oh, right.
Which was like super violent
Rambo.
and stuff. And yeah. We're just called Rambo, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And it's in Thailand, right?
Yeah.
Cambodia.
Yeah, it's in Cambodia. Actually, I'll try and remember to put a link in. But the reason I watched that movie was there was a very small like metalcore band at the time in like 2006 called Symphony in Peril. They had a song called Stiletto, which was just had an amazing breakdown at the end of it. And someone synced up the final like 50 cal like mounted machine gun scene with this breakdown, and there were explosions timed with it and everything, and it was perfect. And I was like, I got to see this movie.
Okay, cool. So I urge you, I beg you to go back and watch First Blood.
Okay.
Because it's not called Rambo First Blood, it's just First Blood.
Okay.
So everything from First Blood Part 2 onwards is utter ridiculousness.
Okay.
The first one is cinema like brilliance.
Right. Okay.
Is actually brilliant. It's like it plays out like a real indie film.
Okay, yeah.
It's
because the whole concept is that he doesn't want to kill anyone or whatever, right?
Yeah, he's a Vietnam vet. He's just got back into the US. He's just like wandering the country. He's just walking around, and he walks through this little town, and they've just and like context is like at that time, Vietnam vets that came back, and especially like conscripts, like people that were drafted, not treated very well whatsoever. Like, because obviously the hippie movement, everything was on at that time. They were being called baby killers when they got back. Yeah, you know, the whole thing, right? And so he's just walking through town. Brian Dennehy plays the cop. Yeah, finds him on the outskirts of town. He's like, I'll help you get to where you're going. And like drives him to the other side of town, drops him off and goes like, keep walking.
Yeah, okay.
We don't want you in our town. And he's hungry. He's been walking for days. He just like turns around, starts walking back into town.
Okay.
And like Brian Dennehy's like, what are you doing, boy? Like, anyway, arrests him, drags him in, hosing him down. They're like beating him up, the whole thing. And he's just like, why are you doing this? Like, I just wanted a meal and a bed, you know, like, and he escapes and just like goes into the forest, and they start going after him. And like, he's a master of the terrain. He learned
jungle combat
basically. And like, he sets up all these like Viet Cong traps, and, you know, like hides himself away in like an old mine shaft, and like the whole thing. Then he basically like lays siege to the town because at that point National Guard's been brought in.
Yeah.
Because he's like basically, and so like, and at the end, the only thing that kind of settles him down is like they bring in Richard Crenna, who is his old CO,
Okay.
to talk him down, and it's just like a really good psychological like look at someone who's just like heavily traumatized and for all of you can hang shit on Stallone all you like, but the man's broken. And like it's a genuine sort of broken. It's not a put on. Sometimes you see these movies and you're like, it's just on the page. Like this, he's a grizzled old, war vet who, and you can see them putting that character on like a shirt.
These are the dot points where that.
Yeah. And whereas this is like, you can see it in his eyes. He's weary.
Yeah.
He's been walking for days. He's got the world on his shoulders. He knows he's left people behind in Vietnam. And like, it's as much like a drama as an action movie. And then the consequent movies just like really ramped up the action.
But was the fourth one, the one that was in like the 2000s, that was like really graphic and bloody and everything? Was that the first one to be like that?
No. So two, I mean, don't get me wrong. The first one has its gory moments. Like, he sets up this thing with like these spikes. He sharpens like sticks and spikes,
like a punji pit sort of thing.
Well, he set up a thing where like he steps on the thing and it swings around. It's like puts like these sticks through this dude, and he knocks a dude, like a dude falls off a helicopter into a ravine and dies, like stuff like that. It's not as action based. He's sort of like people die as a consequence of like following him and harassing him. Whereas like number two, he goes back to Vietnam to bring out some POWs that they knew were there. The third one is in Afghanistan. And there's literally a scene where he has a 60 cal, machine gun, and he's just standing. There's just like Russian troops coming at him. He's just standing there, just like he's got a whole row of like tanks and all sorts of stuff coming at him. It's like no cover. It's just ridiculous. And that whole thing of like with the the red bandana around his head and the bullet belt and all that, that's out of number three. Like,
that's like when they like fully turned it up, because first Rambo was like 81 or something. 82.
Maybe.
Okay.
82. You're right. Sorry. It was 82.
And then like the third one probably would have been like 89 or 91 or some shit.
Yeah,
right.
Well, it was before the Berlin Wall came down. So
right. Yeah, so that would have been right at the peak. Like 89 is the very like the nexus of action movies.
Yes, because
like
the Russians were the bad guys at that time.
Yeah, but like 80, like fucking 6 through to about 91 is like all of that real like fucking
commando,
like war paint and oil, bullet belts, like
Predator,
all the Hot Shots memes, like the Charlie Sheen Hot Shot, everything in that movie came out of that specific
era.
time period.
Yes, totally.
That reminds me as well. So I want to know from the guys, actually, anyone that's out there watching or listening, I love movies, obviously. That's why we're doing this thing. Music as well. But talking about movies and talking about Rambo, I was telling you about a game called Broforce.
Oh, yes.
And
I want to play that.
I'd really like to play that with you. So anyone that's not familiar with Broforce, it's like a side-scrolling kind of game where you're basically just shooting and destroying everything in front of you.
Looks like Metal Slug.
Like a lot like Metal Slug, yes. But all of the characters that you have in that game are 80s and 90s action movie themed, but they've all got bro in their name. So Rambo is Rambro, and then like the Terminator is Brominator or whatever. I think there's even He-Man makes it in, and he's Hebro.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so there's like all of those, but I want to know if anyone, I want to make some.
Surely there's a Bronan.
There is a Bronan as well.
yeah.
There's a few Arnie ones in there actually.
Yeah, it has to be.
Bruce Willis is Brohard. Yeah. But so I want to maybe like play that game.
Yeah,
and maybe we'll film a bit of it or something like that.
I've got a Twitch account. Maybe we could.
Oh yeah, we could Twitch it as well. Yeah. But yeah, I want to play that with you because it's just so it really speaks to everything that we enjoy. Like it's just so good.
Speaking of the word bro and like sort of taking the piss out of stuff like that, have you ever heard of a band called Bro Job?
No, I haven't, but I'm familiar with the term.
That's not what we do here.
It's not what we do here. No, this is a job I do with my
bro. But
don't make it gross, Tammy.
But they basically make songs that are like they take the absolute piss out of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it's really tough deathcore music.
Some of my favorite shit
is the most recent song they put out was called the Incel Anthem.
Fair enough.
And it's all about like, I live in my mother's basement and I talk shit on the internet. And
well, have you heard of Oakley Dokley, the Ned Flanders tribute?
It's very similar in
theme
style.
band where they got like white wine spritzer and it's just super heavy and there's joke bands there's a lot of joke bands that are underrated.
Bro Job and there's another one that recently came out called Buried Alive, but it's spelled BERRIED.
Oh, dude, I'm very familiar with Buried Alive.
Yeah.
I back Buried Alive very heavily. That is some cool shit.
Buried Alive and
they did a song with CJ from Thy Art. That was awesome.
And there's another one that I found just recently as well that's very similar to Eskimo Callboy.
Right.
But this is all in the same, really very much in the same sphere. Eskimo Callboy, Bro Job, Buried Alive.
Yep. I remember Chad from Newfound Glory had a band called International Superstars of Hardcore, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they had songs about like wearing your seatbelt and shit like that.
Well, I mean, there's oh man, what's that band that Tomo loves? That's like basically Austrian Death Machine.
Yeah. Well, you'd be really happy to find out who Austrian Death Machine is.
Oh, it's someone.
It's Tim Lambesis from As I Lay Dying. Yeah.
That's right.
So cool idea, but let's leave that in the annals of history. So,
it's such a shame.
We're 30-ish minutes.
We have 5 minutes when we start.
Real quick, like a song I want to talk about, a tune I want to talk about.
I mean, generally, I probably would have gone with that the Bro Job Incel Anthem. To be honest,
well, for me, I want to talk about supergroups.
All right,
briefly, let's talk about supergroups. There's been a lot like that I've grown up with. Like I remember back when I think it was Jet and Powderfinger and Grinspoon or whatever got together and did the Eevee suite.
Oh yeah,
the Eevee Let Your Hair Hang Down. I remember watching that when I was a kid and being like, I didn't know that bands played in other bands. This is cool. And then I've grown up to see like bands like Dillinger and E-Tid and stuff. They've all got all these bands that they like. There's Black Queen, there's Giraffe Tongue Orchestra, and all that stuff. But Keith from E-Tid is in one of the weirdest ones I've ever heard of. There's him. There's Anthrax, Scott Ian from Anthrax. And there's Andy Hurley and Joe Troman from Fall Out Boy. It's called The Damned Things.
Yes.
So I finally got to see them live at that Buffalo show I went to that I've talked about quite a lot. But I want to talk about that because unlikely team of musicians getting together and making something really excellent. They had a song called Cells they brought out a couple of years ago that was like the 10-year later follow-up to their previous album, and just an absolute banger that shows off everything that all those guys can do without it sounding like any of their bands.
Yeah.
So I was kind of interested, like, what would be the supergroup that you would think of that ticks your box?
Them Crooked Vultures.
Dude, yes. That's a great one. Yep.
And even more so knowing that that as cool as it was that John Paul Jones was the bass player in it, that it was very, very nearly Paul McCartney.
Really?
Yeah, it was almost Paul McCartney.
I mean,
because Paul McCartney, do you remember there was it must have been in 2011. Yeah, it would have been 2011. There was a 20-year Nirvana Nevermind special.
okay.
And like Lord sang at it and a bunch of like, and
Rings a
like
bell.
Lord was like really new on the scene at the time, and maybe it was 25 years, maybe it was like 2016 or something.
Yep.
But anyway, Paul McCartney played in that. He played bass. No, maybe he sang.
Yeah.
Because obviously Chris Novoselic is still around.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where they met there, or Paul McCartney finally came good on his promise to Dave Grohl to play on something.
Yeah.
For him, because he was originally going to be on Them Crooked Vultures, and then John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin took.
It's weird because Paul McCartney did a few features around that time,
Yeah.
like the mid,
Yeah,
like 2010s, because he did that pretty terrible song with Rihanna and Kanye.
Oh, he did too.
Yeah, but
and
he
there was a
didn't
lot of
sing on it or
tweets at the
anything.
time that was like, "Oh, it's real nice of
Them
Kanye and Rihanna
to give this guy
this old bloke a go." You know,
like there would be there. I mean, I'm not going to say the Beatles, are what brought about hip hop, but I mean, like there might not be
as
a
if there
Kanye
hasn't been
and a Rihanna
exactly
if it weren't for
the evolution of music that included the Beatles.
pretty much that, like the way that pop music has.
I was
going
to say
and
they
stuff.
were they not that style, but they certainly were the progenitors of pop music, popular music.
Yeah, that's it. But
The idea that there could be a band that is for everyone.
yeah, and not at all to say that they were the only ones, but I heard someone talking about Elvis the other day who, there's a lot of people have a lot of problems with the white musician taking the black music, making it popular.
Yep.
But I think it was Bill Burr actually that was saying what Elvis did do though was make all the mistakes for everyone. So, there's like the rock star dies on the toilet, sort of like dying on the toilet is the low pointy, but that was Elvis. So there's that. There's also the fact
had been constipated for weeks.
Yeah, really.
Have you not read that? That's why he had a heart attack.
Right.
The man hadn't shit in weeks.
Yeah, well, have you ever seen the Fool's Gold sandwich that he used to eat?
Yeah, but like on top of that, like the cocktail of drugs that he would have.
The drugs doing it, yeah. But there's that, but then there's like all of the ups and downs of his career, and you look at him and the Beatles and all like there's so many lessons that future musicians got to learn from the mistakes that these musicians made. So but then to see Paul McCartney in that song, it wasn't like fuck you, why would you do that? But it was interesting that he was in it because apart from him playing guitar in the music video, there was no real reason for him to attach himself to that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they did do that because once again, for the people that are listening to Kanye and Rihanna, what's the value of having Paul McCartney on the name tag?
Sometimes artists like that just want to tick off working with their idols,
Yeah, true.
But getting back to Them Crooked Vultures, I mean, at the time when that album came out, I was playing in very much a sort of heavy blues rock band.
Swampy blues.
Swampy blues, and that was very much, this is pretty similar sort of vibe, and like it was if ever there could be a second record from that band, I'd love.
Well, that's the problem with a supergroup as well. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up was the fact
because there's 11 tracks of perfection.
Yeah, and then it's gone. It's gone. Wind. And
it has that mythology of it's perfect. You don't need.
Yeah.
If you have a second, you have a chance of you got a 50-50 chance it's going to be terrible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And fuck the whole legacy.
Yeah, and well, I mean, legacy's a whole nother thing, though, isn't it? Right? That it's the same thing we were talking about Canon. It's just because they make another one and it's not as good. I don't think it really necessarily changes anything. But also, doing it again doesn't necessarily mean more good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was 10 years between the Damn Things doing their first one and the next one, purely because scheduling and stuff. All those bands are like big touring bands that are busy all the time. And, you know, I know that it's hard enough for me to, you know, to plan my shit, let alone for people like that are in that sort of industry to, you know, say, oh, hey, when do you guys want to hang out next? Oh, like a year from now? Yeah, cool. No worries.
What's the other hardcore band that Andy Hurley has?
Oh, was it Burning Empires or something?
He's got one that he just put it out on Bandcamp a couple of years ago.
Yeah. There's been a few
really
things that he's been into. Oh, yeah, he's into super heavy shit.
Yeah.
That's why, like, the guys from Fall Out Boy and even Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco did a song with E-Tid. Massive E-Tid fans and massive hardcore fans.
Yeah.
Because that's what they grew up in. They just happened to do more mainstream stuff.
I mean, you know, you go back to those first couple of Fall Out Boy records, like Under the Cork Tree and Infinity on High.
Yeah.
And, like, there's plenty there, like, as a musician, and especially if you've come from a hardcore music background, there's plenty of stuff there to keep you interested. But as Fall Out Boy progressed, and look, I don't want to speak for the band here, but, like, as they progressed and kind of became, like, they literally went as far as becoming, like, really pop music, like, in terms of the style.
And electronic as well.
And electronic as well, like, to the point where, like, there really wouldn't have been a lot to do as a guitarist and a drummer in that band. So I do wonder if that, like, those players got sort of bored in that band, and so they've went off and had their side things.
An interview with them, and they were talking about the fact that it wasn't so much that they were bored with Fall Out Boy, but it's a whole different dynamic they get to tour on.
Yeah.
So when they get to go and do that, it's Fall Out Boy is very much there is an expectation set with the fans for that.
Yeah.
Whereas the Damn Things is just a hangout for them.
Yeah.
It's like us doing this.
Yeah.
It's like it's something that they get to do and they have fun doing, and they don't take it super seriously like it's a regimented thing. Whereas Fall Out Boy kind of has to be that because of all the people that are involved in it, the size of the shows they do. You know, it's same as Foo Fighters. It feels casual, but it's very it
has to
very
be structured.
produced.
Yeah. I went very, very close, because I was a very big Fall Out Boy fan in the early days. I went so close. Do you remember Pete Wentz's, like, clothing brand where the logo was like a bat with a heart in the middle of it?
Yeah, what was it called?
Can't remember.
Yeah.
I went damn close to having that tattooed on me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad I
Because
did.
Fueled by Ramen is the
they're doing a big
label.
Yeah, they're doing a big sale at the moment they're re-releasing a lot of those early releases on vinyl.
Yeah.
Not Fall Out Boy, but a bunch of the other stuff that was on.
Yeah.
You know, like they had Paramore and they had, like, a bunch of that early emo stuff.
Yeah.
Was all on Fueled by Ramen.
I've had some big binges on the YouTube channel as well, just going through. There's been some bands that I found purely just because I had, like, a mix on of Fueled by Ramen songs.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what? I found, like, what's Travis McCoy? What's his band?
Gym Class Heroes.
Gym Class Heroes. I found them through that. And,
Da-da-da-da.
Yep.
Da-da-da-da.
But there's just so many good.
Yeah.
Everything on there is so well produced. And also, I don't even hate, like, New Panic at the Disco because it's really just him making pop songs now.
Yeah.
But it's still really
Brendan
good
Urie's
quality.
virtually the only one left.
He is the
start.
only original member left, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been sick. We're getting on a bit. Should we talk about the movie that we got to see last week?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, it's another one of those ones where we got to go to the screener and we're lucky enough to be the first ones in the country again. Which
because the rest of the country is not going to the movies for some reason.
Sorry, guys.
So we get to go and see Free Guy, the new Ryan Reynolds movie that's been advertised for the last 18 months, nearly 2 years.
Oh, is it one of the ones that's been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back?
So many times. They did a release trailer thing. So obviously, it's same as No Time to Die and all these other movies where they're like, we want to make some money out of this at the theater, but the problem they have is, hey, they get to their scheduled release, COVID kicked it back. Then they got another window where they're like, hey, we think we're finally going to get to release this thing. So they kick the marketing up. So some of these movies have had 3 marketing budgets that have been used.
And like 5 or 6 different trailers. And
so Free Guy, the most recent trailer I saw before we went to it, was the one with Deadpool and Korg. So Korg from Thor Ragnarok and Deadpool, and they sat down and were like, oh, we're going to react to this movie that, I thought this came out like 2 years ago. Like, whatever, we're going to... And, so they just shit on it in that trailer. But the thing I have found interesting about it is I've watched a couple of interviews with Ryan Reynolds and him talking about how they're really proud that they released something that is not based on existing IP. It's a new idea. You know, it's not the most unique idea, but it is an idea that wasn't a sequel, a reboot, based on a book or anything like that.
It was just a game or
a fresh script they wrote. And honestly, I give it about 8 out of 10, I reckon.
Oh, you went that high? Okay.
Yeah, because I like the fact that it wasn't based on existing stuff, so that ranks it sort of artificially high for me because I was like, that was refreshing. But
it benefits from being within the Disney library.
It does, yeah. There's little like nods,
a couple little nods of like, we can do that.
Yeah. We can include these other
nods,
IPs and stuff, but just as a flash. But the thing that I think made that movie was that they, same as Deadpool, they totally just let it be Ryan Reynolds' persona. They let him, run
buck wild. Yeah.
Yep. And so almost all the jokes land, and the ones that don't land, are within tolerances of regular comedies.
I mean, I did find myself a little bit in the movies, like a lot of like there was a bunch of laughs where I was like, I got a bigger laugh than and like I didn't laugh, and then I was like, I got a bigger laugh than I would have thought. I think people were I think it also benefited from like people were stoked to just be in a movie.
Yep. And they were warmed up to it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems comedians seem to have with jokes that get taken out of context, whether they're clipped or written down or whatever like that, is they're like, if you take a joke that is an offensive thing that I said and you write it down and you put it up on a blog or something, you have not only have you taken away the context of me saying it and like what came before it and all the tone that goes with it, but also that crowd has been warmed up for the last 2 hours for this joke.
Yeah.
There's been comedians before me. There's alcohol. There's the vibe in the room. Everyone's there. They're on the same page. And if you say something that's offensive or that's maybe just not even funny on paper, people are going to laugh at it because they're warmed up to it.
Yeah.
But without that warm up, it's just something that's starkly not funny. And for us, maybe just being a bit more discerning, there would be things where you're like, I don't think that's funny, but everyone's so warmed up to the idea of it. And so
there was even a couple of moments that like, I was like, that was in the trailer.
Yeah.
We're not expecting that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I did find the movie funny. Like there's a couple of genuinely belly laugh out loud moments. Like, Channing Tatum cameo
absolutely took the cake. Like
there's a whole scene in the middle of the movie there where that's probably the best sequence in it in my mind.
One of the things that I've loved about Channing Tatum is that he has chosen to take comedy parts and not take himself seriously and to take a relatively small part in a movie like that and make it super fucking memorable. Yeah. It's like Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder. Yeah. The being able to take a smaller supporting role and just turn it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think he's, like, Channing Tatum's probably, like, learned his lesson a little bit, like, realising that he probably doesn't have the chops as, like, a leading action man.
Yeah.
Like, his turn in G.I. Joe just, like, did not play.
Yeah.
To the point where they literally killed him in the first 15 minutes of the sequel.
He can be hot buff boy.
Yeah.
And he can be silly buffoon boy, but I don't think he's very good stern gruff action boy.
No.
Yeah.
No. And, like, that's why I think he worked in, like, 21 Jump Street.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked really well.
Yeah. My name is Jeff.
I knew that. Like that's pretty much the only thing there is to actually say about that movie.
Brilliant.
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just that whole sequence is just great.
It's just excellent. Yep.
There was talk of a 21 Jump Street and Men in Black crossover film at one point. And I know they hinted at it in, like in the credits, they start doing like movie posters for like 25 Jump Street and 26 Jump Street and all that sort of stuff. And I know they hint at it there, but then like the idea started to get some momentum at the studio. They damn near made it where like Men in Black come and recruit them out of their police precinct, like where you get Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones come and recruit them.
But why?
Yeah, I know.
Like so much. But why?
It's because at that time, that would have been at the point at which like things were really starting to ramp up with like Marvel and all that sort of stuff, and you had like Paramount trying to launch their like their dark universe.
Yeah, dark universe, yeah.
With, the Mummy and all that sort of stuff. And so, whoever it is that owns those characters, I can't remember who that is, but they were like, we need a universe of our own.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the thinking, was like, we can kick that off and expand out from there.
Yeah, there's just so much.
It's a slippery slope though, because it's like, why? If your first question is why, then it's not a good idea.
No, fuck no. Yeah, there's some crossovers that just sort of don't need to happen. Also, with 21 Jump Street, I knew that Johnny Depp was in the TV show and everything, but did it fuck you up when it was revealed, like him at the end of the movie, that was him? Because I never cottoned on because I wasn't looking for it. But like when there's the reveal at the end of the first movie that Johnny Depp was the undercover like biker guy,
I'd forgotten all about it, to be honest.
Yeah. So there's like at the start they bust.
Doesn't he just turn up at the end?
He turns up at the end, but they earlier in the movie there were these bikers that they were chasing after or whatever that got away or whatever. But you never realize at the time because there's a bit of emphasis on them as like in that scene. They're not complete background characters. They're characters in the scene.
I'm going to have to rewatch this now.
But then they go away, and then near the end of the movie, there's that big bust at the house.
Yeah.
And they go to bust the guys, and the guy's like, he gets so angry. He's like, we've been undercover for like 20 years. And he like rips all his shit off, and he's like, you're arresting us now, and fuck you, and goes on this big tirade.
Yes,
and
I'll
then,
have to rewatch
And then
it.
the other bad guys are like, what the fuck? And just killed him. So yeah, it was quite a nice reveal.
Yeah,
but I fully never cottoned on. There was, when you're so not expecting something that you actually get surprised. It's been so fucking long, actually.
Yeah,
there's been so many movies in the last 10 years where you kind of like, I wonder if they're gonna. Oh yeah, they did. Okay, yeah, cool. Because the precedent has been set.
That brings out another topic because it's like, where does fan service, does fan service actually like benefit or hinder the movie making or movie enjoyment process?
I'm gonna cast like a broad stroke and say fan service is not great.
No,
because if you think about it, all the Marvel movies that they've been putting out in the last 10 years are just fan service, and that is great. But what it has made the movie industry into is people that are just like executives that are going, right, where's the next nostalgia fest? Where's the next sequel, or how do we reboot, blah, blah, blah. Free Guy being a new IP was refreshing.
But even though it was new IP though, man, it was hitting a lot of the same beats.
Definitely. But
because it references like recognizable things all the way along.
There was the YouTubers and
the YouTubers, like, even though it wasn't actual like franchise things, the whole idea in itself is kind of like, there's a lobby there, so it's sort of like, it references stuff like Call of Duty lobbies and the whole open world thing is very GTA 5.
I guess there is a difference between fan service and relatable, though.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
And I think that movie definitely had, the elements of fan service, but I think what true fan service really is there's an existing story or character or a thing where you shoehorn it in.
You just drag him in for a cameo.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and shit on the Star Wars movies, but there's so many arguments to be made about fan service things they did in those movies.
Yeah.
But once again, what's the alternative for them? They either fully don't do the thing, like it was The Last Jedi, fully try not to do the fan service thing and you get flamed for it, or you do the fan service thing and then people go, well, you didn't do anything new. You're like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
But I think like Free Guy,
I genuinely
it's about Easter eggs more than
I genuinely think Last Jedi was a fantastic movie, and it really took things in a new direction and completely subverted or inverted what you'd expect out of a Star Wars movie. And actually that's probably the last moment where I went into that first scene where Rey's handing the saber to Luke, and I went in like every other fanboy ever, and expecting that he would gracefully take the saber and be like, yes, I will train you, and we were going to go off on this sort of, and he literally throws it over his shoulder and walks off.
Yeah.
And I went, what?
Yeah.
But then the more you look into the whole thing, it's like, no, it makes way more sense. Like, what did every other Jedi do that Luke ever saw role model what happens when things go wrong?
Yeah.
Ran off into exile.
Yep.
Obi-Wan.
Yep.
Yoda. Just went off and hid.
Yeah.
And hid themselves in a place where they weren't to be found and they couldn't do any more damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was just doing, and it makes so much sense that that's what he was doing. He cut himself off from the Force. He's like, I can't fulfill any more prophecies if I don't do the thing.
Yeah.
And I can't, I thought I was helping. Evidently I wasn't. I'm going to go, and rightly or wrongly, but that's the behavior that was modeled to him.
Yeah.
So he just went and did it. That's what he knew. And it's like, that makes so much more sense. So if you remove yourself out of being a fanboy for a second and look at a narrative and look at what had been set up before, because Star Wars is a cyclical thing. Goes around, it's all about family.
Yeah.
Well, at least the saga, the Star Wars, the Skywalker
much
saga.
like just human history.
Correct.
Exactly. It's just the same thing, and you can't expect. The other thing is you can't expect a story like that to end.
To repeat it.
Stories don't end.
That's right.
Nothing ever ends.
Yeah.
So the idea that you would get a nice, neat, Star Wars are over and that universe gone. It's over and we've packaged it and nothing will ever happen again,
Yeah.
It can't happen.
Yeah.
No.
All right, so not to get too far into Star Wars, but fan service.
No,
stuff.
You want to.
I do, but like I said to you the other day, man, this podcast
could be the Seinfeld
easily
and Star Wars.
Seinfeld and Star Wars podcast if you just wind me up and let me go. I absolutely would do it, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'm the same with. I've been looking at the movies that I want to talk about and stuff, and I was writing some down the other day that I'm like, I want to go back and watch this. And
what's one of them?
Well, I wrote down 3 of them, and I was like, they're all Bruce Willis movies. They're all Bruce Willis movies.
We could honestly, the amount of times you've brought up, one, your love for Die Hard 3, but more often than that, you've brought up your absolute hatred for Die Hard 5.
Yeah,
So we could really change the name of this podcast to the We Hate Die Hard 5.
Yeah. Well, or just to What the Fuck Happened to Bruce Willis podcast.
Yeah, we really could.
But I've got a short list. So let me know. I want to talk. We should talk about a Star Wars movie.
Okay.
We should do an episode soon. Maybe we'll do episode. Well, this is episode 9. So for episode 10, maybe we pick our favorite movie.
Okay.
And fucking drill down on it.
Sure.
And maybe pick the things that we don't like about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
And
sure.
so that obviously for me is going to be Die Hard 3. I imagine for you it's going to be. Emperor Strikes Back.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Empire. Why did I say Emperor? I know better than that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Who am I doing a podcast with?
Yeah, Tim's going to murder me after this. Next week, it'll just be a cutout of me. But my short list of Bruce Willis movies at the moment are Last Boy Scout.
Oh, banger.
Fifth Element.
Absolute banger.
Which I know that there's someone that does listen to our podcast pretty regularly who is just going, yes, do Fifth Element.
Yeah, I'd love to. That was at that time, that was just brilliant to see, again, a non-IP science fiction movie that that was just like truly original.
Super original.
Truly original.
And you've got your Gary Oldman just being Gary Oldman,
chewing the scenery
in that the thing that you employ George Clooney to play George Clooney, and he'll be in George Clooney in pretty much every movie, or like a very very similar, or Denzel Washington. They're always the same. Gary Oldman is always Gary Oldman in every film, in that he's never the same person.
Yeah.
No, but that's what I mean. You don't get him and you go, oh, that's Gary Oldman, blah, 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 blah.
What a career.
Every movie he does is a wildly different character.
Yeah.
And
he's in The Professional.
The Professional, yeah.
Oh, man.
But Fifth Element, fucking Last Boy Scout.
What was the third one? What was the third Bruce Willis movie?
Fuck, now I'm not going to remember. I was just thinking of it before and now I've lost it.
Not like Looper or something like that.
Looper was really fucking good, yeah. The Jackal. Where he plays a villain, and I was watching the scene the other day with Jack Black in it, where Jack Black gets his fucking arm shot off, and just how incredible that scene is.
I got a question for you about the Jackal.
Okay.
So, there's a scene where he goes to a city because the person he's trying to assassinate is doing a political speech or an opening of a hospital or something like that. And he needs a place to stay for the night. So he goes to a bar, and it's a gay bar, and he picks a dude up, and they go back to the dude's house, and it cuts away, I think. So I don't know if they bang or not, but they definitely make out.
Yeah.
Do you think that character was gay? Or do you think he was just that good at being a chameleon? He could just he'd just play any role to gain the trust, or the whatever he needed to do, he would do it.
I believe that's what they were getting at. Was the job is everything, and he is totally not concerned with anything other than the job.
Yep.
And therefore was comfortable doing whatever he had to do.
Yeah.
And not in a, I've just got to do this and get through it. He was the utmost confident, just, nothing fazed
chameleon.
him.
Yeah.
Such an excellent character for Bruce Willis too, because name another time he properly played the villain.
Yeah.
He might have, but I can't think of any other memorable movies where he played the villain and played it really excellently as well. I'm sure there's been one of the direct to streaming movies he's done in the last 5 years where he is. I know they just remade all the or remade one of the Death Wish movies. I think they were the
Charles Bronson ones.
Charles Bronson, yeah. They did one with a really half-assed looking one where they just remade the first Death Wish with Bruce Willis
as the Charles Bronson character.
Yeah, looks terrible, man. Looks fucking. Once again, welcome to the. Thank you for watching the What the Fuck Happened to Bruce Willis podcast. We'll be back next week with fucking, I don't know, one of the ones where he's got a wig.
Why?
Because
the Charles Bronson movie is such a product of its time. It's so gritty. You're never gonna that seems like such a film major, college student, incels, I'm gonna remake Death Wish.
Well, you'll probably find what it was that they were just looking for someone, or it might have even been that Bruce Willis was just oh yeah, I like those movies. I want to do one of them. And there was a line of people that were like, yeah, sure. Because for every person that goes, no, I'm not going to do that, there's someone right behind them saying, yeah, fucking pick me.
Nah.
So
Those
and
are
honestly,
like, them and Dirty Harry, like the Death Wish movies, Dirty Harry, leave them where they were.
the Death Wish movie, I haven't seen the original Death Wish, but it was like just stone faced, like yeah.
It's just they're just revenge flicks.
I'll send you the trailer. The trailer for the one with him in it, kind of, it's not a comedy by any stretch, but it's kind of got this like, you know, half-assed, like, you know, gruff action comedy. Not comedy, but
there's no comedy in Death Wish.
Yeah, but it's not comedy, but it's that sort of like, I'm kind of cool and not fazed by shit, as opposed to like I'm mad and yeah.
And like I know it could be a tough thing to like align films with like political leanings. But as far as things got like Dirty Harry goes, like I rewatched the Dirty Harry series recently, like all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard pill to swallow, but you look at Dirty Harry and you realize that like Harry is like the biggest Republican you'd ever meet. Like he is the most right wing, like against progressive, like thought type character like you'd ever meet, and like very much so is like the same as the Charles Bronson Death Wish movies, and I know it's like it's hard to think about because like there's no action movie that includes like gun violence or anything like that you could really be like, that was a left-wing action movie. Like there are none, but there are some that are very like if you look at Dirty Harry, it's almost like it's almost at fascist levels. Like Harry's just like, I will fucking kill you. Like like you make me sick. Like you're like, you're a hooker, you're a drug addict, you're a like, you know, you're anything other than like, you know, sort of good, upstanding white citizen.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
You know, you make me sick.
You look at like the John Wick franchise, right? And that's not a guy going out and killing a bunch of people because he hates them and he's angry at them. That's the whole assassin trope of just like, anyone that comes at me, I know how to take him down. I'm just protecting myself.
They kind of have a pass on that because it's like being agnostic almost. It's like being like I don't like killing, but I have to. I'm good at it.
That kind of thing. Yeah. And it's always a tongue-in-cheek thing, but when you've got a movie that's actively like, you know,
I'm a police officer, I am
angry and I have hate in my heart and I've got a gun.
Yeah, and I'm making it personal. You know, like, It's tough because like, and then like the weird thing about Dirty Harry is that it's set in San Francisco, one of the most progressive places in the US.
Yeah.
And like the San Francisco local government actively petitioned to have Harry not shoot, like have the Dirty Harry movies not shot in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Because ironically, it became like Harry is intrinsically linked to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it. There's one movie that isn't set in San Fran at all. They send him like off. They suspend him and send him somewhere else. It's just like, yeah, it's really hectic.
Fair enough. I think that's our time, actually.
Definitely is.
But I'll have to add that's another. I've got a list of franchises that I've been trying to get through, and I think that's probably one of them.
The Rambo, I think maybe we should watch First Blood together.
Right.
It's a great flick, and so kind of Stallone at his peak, like them and like that and Rocky came out about the same time, and like it's good. It's a good flick.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them I've been trying to get through, but like there's just so many. Like we did, went through and we did all the Aliens, Predators. Yeah. Not all of the Aliens and Predators. We left out Alien versus Predator.
Yes. Oh, I do the same viewing.
Yeah.
AVP and AVP2. Just leave them the fuck
Yeah,
out.
there's no point because
I don't count 'em.
It's kind of like Terminator 3. You don't need Terminator 3. It's just like it feels like a cheap B grade version of Terminator.
I would have been totally happy to leave it as T1 and T2.
Yeah, that's it. And you watch that and you go, this feels like a TV movie. Like there's something weird about it in the tone as they film it, and then you watch the trailer for Alien versus Predator, and you're like, was this made for like the fucking, I don't know, just the Sci-Fi Channel? Was because it was about like mid 2000s or whatever that came out, right? And it just
early
felt
2000s.
like a bad Stargate kind of level, you know? Yeah. You've got all the prowess of the Alien movies on the big screen, and Predator as well, like the first Predator movie being so like, you know, raw and seminal, and then you've got this movie that's just a whole bunch of shitty half-assed CGI, and it's just slapped together with no-name actors, and like, the fuck? Why'd they bother?
Did you see The Predator?
Oh, with Adam Brody?
No, that's Predators.
Oh, this is the one that came out like 2 years ago or something.
That movie is the pits.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Don't.
Okay.
Don't.
It'll poison you.
It will.
Do not take this.
It's so disappointing because Keegan-Michael Key's in it.
Oh, what?
And, oh, wow. It's so bad.
Editing or acting?
Everything.
Right.
Everything.
Okay. Well, public service announcement. Stay the fuck away from The Predator, the most recent Predator movie. Apparently, it will kill you.
Yeah, it's fucking,
until you are dead.
It's fucking woeful.
All right, we better get out of here. Peace and love. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far to the end of the thing, you're a legend. And
totally.
Catch you on the flippy dippy. Bye.